Hey guys, so Facebook, Instagram, and many other popular apps have one thing in common: infinite scroll. They let you scroll through an endless content without ever needing to tap a load more button. Sounds like magic, right? Well, today in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to implement this exact feature in your React Native and Expo app. And we'll fetch our data from the Fake Store API so that by the end of this video, you'll be able to create a seamless scrolling experience that keeps your users engaged. So let's jump right in. If you're new to this channel, please consider subscribing and leave a like on this video. Also share this video to your fellow developer friends so that you encourage me to keep making good and interesting content like this for you. So let's get down to the business of today, which is infinite scrolling. So we're going to be starting with a blank screen. So let's create our component here and I'll call it my product. And I'm going to create the function here, like our component. Let me just enlarge that so you can see it better. And I will just export that. And we can go ahead to our app.css screen and use it there. And so now let's run our app. npm run start. And we'll open it on Expo Go. Now we have our app open here. So the next thing we'll do, let's install Ajax. So we can use it to fetch our data. So that's installed. Now let's go ahead and get the URL we'll be fetching from. So our URL, let's just save it here. So that's our URL. So the next thing we're going to be doing, we'll be creating some states. So that we can use these states to manage our data and receive our data. So we'll do const data. So because we don't know the type of the data we're receiving, that's why we're using any. But that's not a problem for now because we're not teaching TypeScript in this video. So we also have a loading state which is of type boolean, and we'll have page. Our page will be set to 1 and we'll have has more, which is, we'll set it to true. So yeah, so the states we just created, the data will be used for fetching our data from the API endpoint, and we'll be saving it in data. Then our loading states will track whether the data is being fetched, and it will be true if the data is being fetched. Then the page will be like the current page number to handle our pagination, because infinite scroll has to do with pagination, but you won't be clicking next button or previous button. It will just be going to the next when you scroll to the end of the page, or when you scroll to the end of the screen rather. And has more states will be checking, will be tracking if more data is available to load. So that's what we'll be using has more for. So let's proceed. So now let's write our function to fetch the data, so then we can use our data the way we like it. Now please make sure you follow along every single step of the way so that you'll not miss anything at any point. So now we'll be writing our function to fetch the data. So I'll write that and I'm going to explain it. Fetch data. So my code editor already knows what I want to write, but we'll not just be using a normal asynchronous function, we'll be using a callback function. So let's do that. and we'll be using the use callback in React. So we'll have asynchronous function. So we have to import this, and I think it has dependencies also, so we'll get to that later. Now the first thing we'll do, we'll check if it's loading, if our loading state is true, or if we don't have more data, and then we'll return nothing. Now we're going to be setting our loading state to true, and we're going to have our try and catch block. So we'll have cost response, cost wait, as just to get. Now let's use our URL in here. So we have to import Axios. Yes. So let's use our URL here, but we'll make it like using these backticks. So let's actually use it here. And let's use a limit so that we can fetch like just maybe 10 at the same time, and then when we scroll down we can start getting more. Also, let's use a limit. Just follow me. So limit equals to 10 and page equals to page. Now this page that we have here is the page that we set here, which is 1 at the start. So we're kind of doing pagination, but we're not going to be clicking a next or previous button. So that's what we're trying to do here. So just follow along. And so after this line, if our response returns some data, okay, if our response, the data is then we'll have to set has more to false. If the data, there's no more data to fetch, then we'll have to set has more to false. Else we'll set the data to previous data and add the new data. What we're doing here is that we're going to be adding the new data to the previous data so that we can have all of them at the same time. So I'm going to give this any so that it will stop shouting error. Yeah. And also we'll set the page to no. The previous page, and we'll increment it by 1. So that's our try block. Now we'll be writing our catch block here to catch any error that will occur, and we'll just console the log error fetching data and show the error. And we'll also set our finally block, and that finally block will just say no matter what happens in our try or catch block, set the loading state to false at the end of the day. So this is our function to fetch our data. But why did we use callback? And why is it showing an error? Now that's a problem and we need to solve that. Now the reason why we use callback is so that we can memorize the fetch data. I don't know if that's what they call it, memorize. So that we can memorize the fetch data function, ensuring that the function is not recreated on every render unless the dependencies change. So that's why it's crying for some dependencies here. So we'll have has more, and also we'll have page, and we'll have loading. So we are setting this as dependencies now. So you can see that the error has disappeared from the use callback. Now that we've written our function, let's run our function inside our use effect. So we'll just fetch data, and we'll set the fetch data function as our dependency here. So that's good. Now, what the next thing we're going to do is to create our render item, which we're going to be using in a flat list to display all the data that we're going to be fetching from the API endpoint. So just follow me while I do that. We're going to be displaying the item title and the item description in this our render item. So this style, I'm not going to write them myself, I'm just going to import them so that I will not waste your time. So we're going to paste them down here. Why is this giving an error? Okay, we already have one style here, so I'll just do that. Yeah, and we are good. Now, if you know how Facebook and Instagrams, or maybe even LinkedIn infinite scroll feature works, you will notice, I don't even know if they do that anymore, but normally if you are scrolling an app or a website that has this infinite scroll feature, you will notice that when you get to the end of the screen, it shows a loading state. It shows a loading spinner that keeps loading, and when it fetches the data, it disappears and the data shows up. So we're going to be doing that also. So for that, I'm going to be using the activity indicator. So just follow me along and let's write that here. So I'll call it render footer, and it will be accepting event. Sorry, no, this won't accept anything. Now, if loading state is true, then we're going to display the activity indicator, and if loading state is not true, then we'll just not display anything, null. So I always like the size to be large, and let's say the color will be, let's do something like purple. So yeah, that's our render footer. Now there's one more thing we're going to be doing before we create our flat list, and that is to create what we call a handle scroll. Now we'll create our handle scroll function, and what our handle scroll function will be for is that it will detect when the user scrolls to the bottom of the list. Now, how are we going to do that? We're going to be doing that by comparing the content height with the scroll position. So when the user is near the bottom of the screen, then we'll know that the user is like at the, and then we'll have to fetch more data. So let's do that. Const handle scroll. Okay, this one will accept event, type any. Event. Okay, my code editor already knows, and you see, so I believe WebStorm is just much better for me than VS Code. I know everyone uses VS Code. In fact, when they are teaching you how to code, they will always show you VS Code. But the Workstorm is more of an IDE, it's more advanced than VS Code. It's not just a code editor. So, but I've been enjoying it since I switched over to WebStorm. I think you should try it out too. Um, yeah, measurement height, and now we'll have to check here if the user has scrolled to the bottom of this screen. So let's do that. If content height, which we created here, minus content offset y, which we created here, is less than or equals to layout dot height plus 20. Now the reason why we're adding 20 is so when the user is near the bottom with 20 pixels, then we'll trigger our fetch data function again. I hope that was easy for you to grab, but yeah, just follow along. So if this is true, then we'll fetch our data again. So that's our handle scroll function. So let's put it all together in our flat list now. So now we'll be deleting this and be adding a safe area view so that our content will not float out of the screen. If you can see now, it's floating out of the screen already. So we'll save this and it will come and it will respect the notch. Yeah, it will respect the notch, and so that's easy. And now if you can see here, I decided not to use the my product function, my product component anymore. So I just wrote out all this code inside the app.tsx screen. So so you can know how to use it on your own. You won't get confused of where to put this or where to put that. So anyway you want to put the component and this function, it's fine. But I just decided to use the app.tsx file here. So I'll just close this. And yeah, let's proceed with that. So the next thing we'll do now is to create a flat list. Yes, I'm importing flat list from React Native, as you can see here. So yeah, and flat list always accepts some should I call it properties, and one of them is data. Now this data, we are fetching data from the API endpoint, and we are setting the data that we're getting, the response that we're getting to this data in our state here, which is this. So we're going to pass this data to our flat list as the data that we'll be giving it. So data. Then our render item is what do we want the flat list to show for each item that is passed in from the data. So that's why we're giving it a render item. Render item. So this render item is the render item we just created here. So we can close this. It's a self-closing component or element, and then we can give it we have to give it a key extractor. Let me just look for a way to adjust this so it can flow well. So yeah, so now we need to give a key extractor. This stuff of having to pass in a key to when you are using the map function in JavaScript. So that's what we're trying to do here, so that how do I explain this now? So that when we're mapping through the items, because flatlist is just like using the map function. So when we're mapping through the items, we'll be able to distinguish each item. Yeah, just like that. Let's just use the item ID and hope we have an ID in the data. Definitely we'll have an ID in the data that's coming. So we also have our list footer component. This is some of those properties that flat lists always have. So it's giving an error. Let's see what's the error. Let's move on. And also let's have on scroll property, and we'll pass in undo scroll. And we also have another property here that we'll call scroll event throttle, and we'll pass it 400. So yeah, so this is our flat list, and I wonder why this is giving me an error. So the reason why this is showing an error is because it's supposed to be capital letter and not small letter. So okay, so the error is gone. And so let's save this now and see what happens on the screen here. We can see our loading spinner, our activity indicator. It loads, trying to fetch the data, and when it fetches the data, it should stop spinning. So what I will do now is that I will refresh this, or reload it rather. Okay guys, so it's obvious we have a bug, and that's why our loading spinner just keeps spinning without stopping. So let's try to figure out what is wrong. Okay, first of all, this is supposed to be spread. Yeah, we're supposed to use the spread operator here. And the loading state, okay, yeah, we're supposed to set the loading state to false for a start. Then our function, we set it to true, and whatever the outcome is set to false. So let's save that and see. So yeah, so you can see that our data has been fetched now, and we have our data. But yeah, let's undo this issue that says encountered two children with the same key. I think we might have to use the index here. So let's use the index of type number, and we'll use index dot to string. Let's see, will that work? I will save that, and okay, so we don't have that error anymore. So let's refresh, and we see our data fetching. Yeah, the loading spinner spins, and then it fetched the data. So now that we have everything working, let's check our infinite scroll. So I'm going to refresh this now so that we can, see the way it works. I'll refresh, and so it spins, and then it fetches the data, and so we can scroll down. You can see, look at this this horizontal scroll bar. Is it horizontal or vertical now? And so we can keep scrolling, and when we get to the end, it spins and fetches all over. If you see, this is the first item in the data that's coming from the API endpoint, and you can see the scroll bar is getting smaller because the data is getting more, and it spins again and fetches again. So it keeps going, and if we have like maybe 1 million data coming in, then it just keeps coming, infinite. It's infinite. So this is our infinite scroll feature. We get to the end again of the screen, it spins, fetches the data again, and then gives it to us, and we can just continue doing this over and over, and it just keeps getting so much. The data just keep coming and coming and coming. So that's it. So I created a post on this channel asking for what feature that made you abandon a project, a React Native or Expo project. And so that was how I saw different people coming to me both on LinkedIn and on YouTube saying, okay, we want infinite scroll feature, and that's why I did this video. So I would like you to tell me which feature you would like me to do next. You can leave a comment in this video and tell me what feature made you abandon the project, and I'll simplify it for you. Like, that's what we do on this channel. So subscribe, just subscribe. That's like you supporting me, saying, hey, we enjoy your content and want you to keep doing this, and just continue. Don't leave us. Continue making content that will help us build our React Native and Expo app, and I'll just keep giving you content back to back, like very, very helpful content. I'll simplify it in a way that you will not imagine that it was that difficult if you were to do it on your own. So please subscribe, and you can chat me up on LinkedIn and as being what you're up to, what your project is like, or what you're currently working on. I'd like to relate with you, so we can work together, build together, and teach each other stuff. So that's it from this video. So have a nice day and stay blessed.